Okay, hello everyone. The past waits for the future as the future waits for the past. As a human being in 2022, as an evolutionary organism that has been on a journey for 4.5 billion years, the psychology has arrived at a position where human beings not only extract meaning out of the moment based on their past, based on past actualities, but rather future potentials. You see, it's as if we managed to somehow fathom that a bewildered beast of an animal managed to wake up from the slumber of how the ecosystem it found itself first conditioned it to, in some sense, create its own ecosystem. One can say that there is a personal dimension to time and there is an impersonal dimension to time. The impersonal dimension to time is how we are changing, how the world is changing, and the personal dimension of time is how we are changing. In these episodes of mine, pretty much I look at reality and I have noticed that everything it's like the species in its approach to understanding has taken a divide and conquer strategy, right? That means on one level, life is so existential and instantaneously experiential that it cannot have a meaning other than what it is being. And on another level, or let me say it this way, existentially, life cannot have meaning because to exist is the meaning. The meaning is in a mode of being. But if you were to think about the position of human consciousness, the experiencer in all of this, it's as if there's an opportunity to access a landscape and to move in a landscape. And if the self moves faster than the world is given meaning by the inner realms. If the world moves faster if the outer realms move faster than the self, in some sense, I would say the outer realms give meaning. So pretty much I'm saying that the human experience seems to be divided between a dimension of body, physical stuff, and a dimension of mind, which we say mind stuff or subjects and whatnot. You know, the thing about subjects is that they have shape, but we cannot touch it. The thing about objects is we can touch them, but in some sense, their existence is independent to our mind. But subjects, their existence are dependent to the mind of the individual. Even in philosophy, there's this notion of an abstract object, right? That's like a sophisticated way of saying a subject. I sometimes ask myself that if, let's say, a time traveler from the future arrived and took me, let's say, I don't know, 4,000 years into the future and told me, all right, man, what would you tell these people? If I was to record a podcast 4,000 years in the future. I would simply look at life 4,000 years from now and be like there are same algorithms that apply, similar existential algorithms, but the experiential algorithms are going to be different. What that means is that as long as there's a self in a world, it's very obvious that the purpose is either defined, prioritized by the world, or it's prioritized by the self. You know what it is? It's kind of like I'm that person saying that all human beings are scattered in 2 dimensions, in either one. Those who believe in their self before believing in the world, they become, in some sense, I would say, you know how like young children, they play around in a moment, but they're oblivious to, let's say the more complex structure of how the moment is held. For example, okay, I'll tell you this. Not yesterday, 2 days ago, there's this really nice, park dash stream beside my place. And there's this tree that has been uprooted, and kind of like this dead tree. And this dead tree, it's like horizontally on the ground, but because it has a sort of, it's not like a straight line. It's like a part of the dead tree is over the water. So I often go there and I sit and I just look at the stream and in some sense either write stuff or listen to stuff and whatnot. And I remember 2 days ago when I was there, I saw this mother duck and with its 2 ducklings, just 2. And in some sense, the 2 ducklings were just playing in the water, and the mother duck was scanning the environment, Now, when I think about, again, the 2 types of dimensions that humans seem to be scattered through, those who are occupied by the self, the world is acting technically like a parent. That means it's as if like those who their purpose is to just be a self, the world is in the back kind of scanning. Those whose purpose is to become the world, that is such a different purpose. For example, fame, pride, victory, achievement, these are I would say individual attainments. The hilarious thing is so many people understand that a collectivity is important. We have a ridiculous amount of oneness preachers in the New Age community. But the reality of collectivity is a round circle. It's kind of like saying, the everything of everything is equal to nothing. Like if somebody says right now I'm being everything, that's technically, there's no way to individualize, so the person's not being an individual, they're being nothing. That means being everything is kind of like being nothing. It's not humanized. And being nothing, that means nihilists, to me, they are like believing, they have the same intensity of belief as religious people who believe in God, but their God is emptiness. You see, at the end of the day, where is the attention of human beings? And that becomes their philosophy. When I say the past waits for the future, we look at our ancestors and we ask ourselves, why did they live on? Sometimes I ask myself, sometimes when I, let's say there's some days where I look down on myself and I walk more as my shadow than, the light of my presence. It's like some days are like shadowy days. I don't know how to tell you. There's some days that a person could have any idea. You could feel like everything's the best, but you just realize it's like the day where the shadow gets released. When I think about all those human beings, or all types of human beings that have lived on this earth, not only does it make it impossible to compare, that means there has been so many different types of human beings on this planet. They have lived so many different types of lives that, let's say, like a advanced computer, if we wanted to index all these lives, it's technically like impossible. I think for the meaning of the human mind, like pretty much human understanding is reaching an unknown infinity. That means it's either an endless conceivable infinity, or it is technically an inconceivable eternity of being. It's another way of saying, if the human being was made of matter and space, the purpose of matter would be infinite change. The purpose of space is to be the place where infinite change happens. Being a human being is honestly having access to two dimensions. In this episode, I'll try numerous times to explain this again and again and again until the species realizes its inner life can lead to its outer freedom. When I look at the past, or anybody's ancestors or whatnot, they cared to get to the future. That means you can have the most evil person and the most good person, and they both want to see the future. One of them wants to see it peacefully. Let's say the other doesn't care about it if they see it peacefully. But on some level, whether it's an evil being or a good being, an ordered being or a chaotic being, both beings want to get to tomorrow. Both beings want to, let's say the evil being wants to dominate the world, and let's say the good being wants to liberate the world. But technically they have to get to tomorrow, right? So it's as if like the future is a sort of common denominator of a value that goes beyond chaos and order. That means somebody was like, what do we do with all this chaos and order in the present, in the here and now? And the answer is that you wonder about where chaos and order are going. You know, recently my opinions on yoga have been polished, repolished, and I would say that I was responding to someone on Facebook, and I was telling them how, to me, you can have this example of, let's say there's a guitar, and now imagine there's someone playing this guitar endlessly, and imagine there's someone. Here, let me just read what I wrote. Hold on, guys. It's right here. Okay. I wrote this actually yesterday. It's a response to somebody's comment on Facebook, but I'll just read it. Imagine there are two people. One of them is tuning the guitar endlessly, and the other is playing the guitar endlessly. The one tuning the guitar is like a religious person endlessly praying for truth, or a person trying to be in the same state of comfort all the time. The one playing the guitar has realized the value of truth, in brackets the guitar sounds, and living the divine reality, in brackets playing it. The guitar player is experiencing truth. The guitar tuner is just preparing for it. Our ancestors don't want us to repeat what they did. They want us to do what they couldn't. I don't know why, but I feel using a technique or believing in an idea in order to get to truth is dishonest. An enlightened being would not need the concept of enlightenment, in brackets samadhi, because it is already being it. If you realize you are already being free, you don't need to do any ritual for it. It's already there. Freedom is simpler than meditation. Yoga seems to be just a way to give yourself permission to notice that truth is instantaneous. Before you were being you, truth was being truth. To release yourself from karma, you need to be detached from the fruit of all activities, as the Gita suggests, which is another way of saying to be detached from the meaning of anything in samsara. You cannot become enlightened in samsara. You were either never here or samsara was never samsara. And samsara, for those who don't know what that means, it's a Vedic term which means life is a simulation. It's a dream. So I'm pretty much saying you cannot escape a simulation. You were either never in it or the simulation was never a simulation. So this metaphor of somebody tuning a guitar endlessly and somebody playing the guitar, this is honestly true spiritual freedom. You know, spiritual freedom, it's as if the spirit is poetically or historically considered as something beyond objects and subjects, or that which moves objects and subjects. It's as if the spirit is free, the mind doesn't notice its freedom, so it identifies to how the body is limited. You know, imagine somebody, whoever you are listening, imagine for a moment you look at an iceberg and you see that the tip of the iceberg is like a very small percentage of, and most of the iceberg is underwater. Similarly, I want human beings to begin considering that their names, personality, memory, history, even visualization and imagination, it's like their beliefs are the tip of the iceberg to an unknown experiential event that is happening. It's as if, what is the greatest gift that someone can receive? This should be a question everybody should wonder about. You know, what's the greatest gift that can be received? And the greatest gift, I believe, for the human species, the greatest gift the human species can get, right, is in some sense realizing its potential can be activated. I don't know any other reason why people should teach, why people should say anything. You know, language has such a deep philosophical implication. Sometimes I feel that human beings are emotional creatures and their logic is actually bypassed by a sort of how they feel all the time, right? And then at the same time I feel it's like, you know, a sort of analytical performance, you know. You know, imagine somebody says, I feel that I feel that I'm feeling that I feel. So let me bring out the notepad. There's something to show here. It made the 9% battery of my notepad be equivalent to, like, you know, 90% battery. Okay, there we go. So let me see. The future, or let me write this, that we have the past waiting for the future, and we have the future, or here. So I guess here we'll make this the number 1 and we'll make this number 2. For number 1, I would say, what are ways that the past is waiting for the future? Dreams, ambitions, purpose of survival. To get to see what the future looks like. That is the vision of the past. That means, why is the past waiting for the future? You know, it's kind of like a being in the present. They've noticed that, like, the past has been passed, right? The present is just there, and so the future is how the past and the present can go into a hilarious view of, like, if they were both chemicals, it would be like the present is a chemical, the past is a chemical, and their chemical reaction creates something that had never been before. And in some sense, we have, let's say, probabilities of the future. So just like two chemicals react, they become something else, they become something new. It's as if, like, a present existential dimension and a past experiential dimension we call memory are, in some sense, you know, interacting to lead to the notion of the future. That means this notion can even be to continue the effort of the species. This might be a bizarre way of saying it, but to me it seems that the conscious creature is addicted to continuity. Or I shouldn't say addicted, I should say attached. Right now I ask myself, like, what is my value as a human being? And so I see, like, there's my memories, which is my past, there's how I'm existing right now in the present, and then there's who I will be in the future, you know. Sometimes I really wonder about the future, and not the future I see in my inner realms, because that has geometry, and if I look at the geometry of my imagination long enough, I can see its interconnection, I can see its relationship with reality. You know, a person can imagine, for example, let's say, you know, a human being with, let's say, there's a human being walking, and this human being has, like, a purple glow, you know, just coming from them. kind of a purple neon glow. Like a person can imagine that and realize that it's like, just like we need the words in the dictionary, there is an alphabet of images associated to reality that the memory is generating. It's like a person wonders about the origin of thought and wonders if a thought is creating a thought. Human beings trying to understand the meaning of this world existentially is like existence trying to figure out how it was created by existence. You know? The thing about existence is that it is unknown when there's space. It's like the moment the scientific community said there's an unobservable universe, that's it. That's like the end of the, I would say, conceptual search. You know what it is? It's like, even though there's this whole program of the human agenda, the human species, it's kind of like we have an evolutionary agenda of continuity and extinction bypass. And I guess what I'm trying to get to, is that the way the past waits for the future, it can only fathom the future based on its memory. The past waits for the future. I guess we will ask, how is the past waiting for the future? And how we're doing that as a human species is that the past is being considered known. Just the fact that we can use the word past, it's as if we're saying we know what happened before, right? So I would say the past, in regards to equals memory equals known. And so it's as if the past is waiting for the potential, for the future potential of memory. That means when a past being is waiting for the future to happen, when in the psychology of the creature there's a relationship with the notion of revelation. Revelation has a religious meaning, but it also has a secular meaning, and its meaning is simply to see new dimensions. At the time when I think of like in the 6th century, sure, the idea was new and everybody was fascinated, but it's like 1,000 years after that, it's kind of like, again, wondering if our ancestors want to see us behaving like them, or they want to see each human being originally activate. It's as if like some of the challenges in building an advanced civilization is like, how do we get a species to identify with its potential to build something incredibly efficient? That means, believe it or not, the past is waiting for the future, and its strategy is to give or reach as far as it can and then pass the torch to the future. That means it's like greatness in all dimensions, endless effort in all dimensions, until there is nothing left to do. The poet Rumi says, before death takes away all that is given, give away all there is to give. Another way the past could be waiting for the future is that somebody's actually waiting for like a time traveler. Imagine they're like, man, you know, my future self told me it'd be here like 10 minutes ago. You know, it's like you're waiting for a time traveler for you. But then we ask the question, how is the future waiting for the past? Another way of saying this is, how would a time traveler wait for the past? Or what would be a time traveler's considerations? Or here's the thing, what would a time traveler expect from its past? And guys, this might be bizarre what I'm gonna say, right? I actually think that's the proper term. But it could be that time travelers that come to the past are actually beings that feel they have failed their future. This might be a bit strange thing, but it's as if any time traveler that comes to the past, it's as if has the future failed? Like, why should a future being wait for the past? And there's two answers. One, the future is destroyed and there's no going back, or the future is timeless. In the future, we are not an individual organism, just swimming through objects and subjects to, in some sense, find meaning in life. In the future, we're going to be the space where the meaning of life is found in. It's another way of saying the body is the journey of the past to the present, and the mind is the journey of the future into the present. But the future is an omnipresence. If in the future we all become an inconceivable being that is sourcing our own manifestation, it's as if, like, who knew the future was God? Because what is revelation? Why, in some sense, this is one of my theological mysteries. The mysteries I wonder about theology. Why was the concept of an end of days shared? Why was the idea of an apocalypse existing, when in some sense an individual dying is like the whole world breaking, and when the whole world dies, it's like an individual dying, And I realized that the ideological systems that from ancient times have managed to endure and exist in today, because they added a perspective that in some sense provided a value that it didn't matter which generation you were born. If you felt like, imagine you're a lonely kid, all right, or imagine you're an orphan, and then you hear this idea that there's a God, right? And it's as if the orphan suddenly feels, for example, it's as if the creator of the universe is right there in the moment, just standing. It's as if, like, how a king looks at its own kingdom, right? It's like the idea of the God is a sort of universal, like the king of manifestation, staring at manifestation, and manifest entities are like, our source is here, Pretty much time travelers expect, if a time traveler has an expectation from its past, it has an expectation to exist in a parallel universe. You see, this is the bizarrest thing about, I mean, here, I'll say this is the most fascinating thing about the concept of time travel. That the moment it's possible, it's a multiverse. That means time travel is like a verb possible only inside a multiverse. Just like a music producer adds another level, for example, let's say on Logic or FL Studio, they add another level of music, another channel or track line. So it would be something where another layer, it's as if time travel would be intervention through man. It would be like doing something in the world that is not bound by this change, right? That means time travel is technically a changeless technology. It's like that. That's why I think it's on some level it's impossible. Because if it was possible, the person who goes into the future is adding information to the past, right? It's as if the moment the time traveler went to the past to tell its past self to do something different, the moment it entered the past, that past was no longer the past, you know. That means it's like time travelers didn't even need to, go back in time and tell like their past selves what to do. They just had to go back in time. It's like the moment they pressed like the start button on the time machine and the time machine went to the past, that's a different future actor. But now let's consider, where's my pen? Let's consider a collective perspective to time travel and an individual perspective. Individual can move through time. A collective being is being the space where time can move. What if the future is a timeless collective energetic presence? Like right now human beings are like, what am I made of? And the answer is like, okay, there's energy at work, there's energy here. Like right now I have it's my energy that in some sense, like the wax of a candle is becoming the glow of this podcast. It's as if it is true, we do consider ourselves as energetic beings now, but to be a true energetic being means in some sense, just like they say, energy cannot be created or destroyed. say energy cannot be created or destroyed. An energetic being from its essence, cannot be created or destroyed. It's another way of saying, guys, that imagine the body is an Iron Man suit, and imagine the mind is also an Iron Man suit. You know, imagine the body is an Iron Man suit. Inside the body, there's another Iron Man suit called the mind, and inside the mind is being an Iron Man suit for, let's say, the soul. And what the soul is and how energy cannot be created or destroyed. So it would be another way of saying, like an infinite viewing, an infinite viewing force is experiencing a finite body, and due to an infinite viewing force is experiencing a finite body Here, I got it. I should say an eternal viewing force is experiencing an infinite mind through a finite body. What does this mean? It means when you look at the physical dimensions of life, change is inevitable. Change is the commander of the elemental. When you look at the mind, you know, it's as if the body is destined to go towards it's let's say a sort of non-existence, or a reversion to its simpler, you know, state of just being the periodic table. It's as if we're all destined to return to the periodic table, all the elements that constitute us. But when you look at the mind is using the body as a lift-off platform into an ability to pretty much, it's an arithmetic of psychology. What that means, it's like either dimensions can be added, dimensions can be taken away, dimensions can be divided, or dimensions can be multiplied. Earlier in the talk when I said divide and conquer is a strategy, why is divide and conquer a strategy? Because when you divide something, it's like the power of one great power is become 2 points, right? So imagine like a person trying to do 2 things at the same time, rather than doing one thing with like 100% attention, it becomes doing 2 things with like 50% attention and 50% effort in both dimensions, you know. You know what it is? It's that on some level, the world cannot change, and so it is creating change. You know, it's like a changeless experiencer. going through the changing experience. You know, there's moments, guys, where I would say I think people who have a poetic inclination in their perception who realize, like, you know, the power of the unknown is to show you something that your knowledge could have never known. You know, it's as if when I was younger, life was about trying to discover a truth. And then later on, it's as if you realize that it's as if truth conceptually is not something that is anywhere else. Like the idea of a truth, that if something is true, it is instantaneously true. You know? So, in some sense, it becomes like the poet Rumi says it incredibly. He says, your task is not to search for love, but to get rid of all the barriers you have made against it. Similarly, it's like our task is not to search for truth like a bewildered savage animal, you know, but in some sense realize how are we not being true, you know. When I was younger, I was very shy, and I was shy because I felt the pressure of a sort of judgment of the outer realms to my inner realms. But years later, I realized it's as if the inner realms is hidden. Right? A person's mind is hidden. If a person listens to the outer realms, right, then in some sense, here's the thing, what I'm trying to say. In every moment, either a person's self is moving the moment, or the world is moving the moment. In states of unconsciousness, the world is moving the moment, right? If human beings, we say death is an unconscious state, you know, a non-conscious state, you know, it's honestly like there's a knob to the lighting in the room, and it's as if death is like the dimness of the light, as if there's nothing to see, if there's anything to see. But life is like there's something to see that can endlessly see. You see, the value of the human eyes is not that it can just define itself, but that the exploration of new dimensions brings new information. Pretty much new experiences realign the structure of the inner realms, right? And if a person realizes how they're being an object, you'll realize, like, after that, the only thing left is to realize how you're being a subject. And when you come to realize how you're being a subject, it's like following this logic where we're saying where are subjects? Subjects are in the mind. So it's like, here, it's like if the mind is creating the concept of the mind, then how can the mind create itself? What I'm trying to say is that the inquiry of a physical level, it has results because it has content. When I say inner realms, or, you know, I want everybody who's listening to treat you, wherever you are, don't think you have imagination or not. Just think that the mind, every human being, their mind is like an invisible art studio. I think this is a very healthy way to explain imagination, especially to young children, that every person has access to a private server behind their eyes, like an art studio, right? Now, why do I say art studio? Because a person can just sit down, close their eyes, and in their mind live. You can move in your art studio, right? Anytime I have to wait for a long time, you know, let's say it's at a line in the bank, or, you know, just wherever, for a bus or subway, you know, it's as if like anytime I have to wait, I just give myself this ability to just like zone, you know how they say the word zone out, right? A person zones out. I would say I zone in, right? And I zone in my own inner realms, right? And I, believe it or not, the way I live behind my eyes, it is so different than how I'm living in front of my eyes. And when I say how I live behind my eyes, it's as if I was to close my eyes and there wasn't exposure of the outer realms to my inner realms, like the attention identifies with that. You know, you can move as an unknown viewer of thoughts that come and go behind your eyes, pretty much. And really, a sort of source of, you know, truth all the time is how the attention is being. So it's like, you know, I remember, or let me say it this way. If the scientific method inspires an ability to go back to the simpler truths of a situation and then build back up towards complexity, if we were to go to the simplest state of knowledge, we would see it as the unknown. And the unknown means that truth can ideologically be anything. That means, let me tell you what's going on with truth on this planet. Truth is like, imagine if the whole species is inside a room and there's a door to the room and nobody knows what's inside, you know, or imagine there's this giant door and nobody knows what kind of room is behind this door. Now the people behind the door are all saying, they are all saying what's in the room. Somebody believes like there's nothing behind this door. Somebody believes there's God behind this door. Somebody believes there's like aliens behind this door. Somebody believes like the doors, you know, inside the door is another universe, another whatever, right? And so it's as if everybody behind the door is wondering about what's on the other side of the door, and we are fighting over, you know, the fiction that is moving non-fiction. You know, it's fascinating. The unknown means that, like, this is honestly how I feel at this moment in history. That honestly, I don't know anything in the sense that the I that knows is unknown. Language is advanced technology, or can be used in is technology that can be used in an advanced way. So we can say the first mind created the concept of the mind. And this is, I would say, this is the second mind. So the first mind was a mind beyond language, and then this mind beyond language used language to come up with the concept of the mind and even wonder about the definition. So when somebody wonders about the origin of their body, they realize their mind is moving their body. And then when a person wonders about the origin of their mind, this is where the fear of the unknown. It's as if sometimes I feel, you know, people who are ideological worshippers, you know, ideology worshippers. Ideal worship is like a reaction to how the person couldn't be content with how unknown the world is, so at least it's like a story is better than nothing. You know, a truth everybody else believes in is better than having no truth, people think. But in some sense, being able to stand in the unknown, this is to me one of the most divine feelings I've had, right? And there's this quote that says, you know, loneliness is the poverty of self, and solitude is the richness of self. You know, something like that. I don't know who said this quote, but it's an incredible quote. And so what that means is solitude is the richness of the self. It's as if you realize, regardless of what you have done, regardless of who you have been, regardless of who you know and what you know, you are standing in the unknown universe as an unknown viewer of it. And anybody who can become content with this is the finale of the metaphysical speculation. You know, the unknown is unknown. This is the direct experiential truth to all ideological systems. If the species identifies with the unknown, then the future will be left to know. But if we identify with the known, then the future is going to be unknown, right? It's going to, like, here's the thing, if we have expectations on how the world hasn't happened yet, or how the world, if we have expectations on how the world will happen, it's another way of saying our memory is trying to own eventhood. You know, there's times where I feel like I am at the, front lines of the great battle of, the multidimensional revolution of a species from a dualistic, linguistic enslavement, right? I feel on some level like, I would say a freedom fighter, seeking the victory of, I would say, a solar, I shouldn't say freedom fighter, because deep down I don't see fighting, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like if there's two people and they're punching each other, imagine somebody who owns a construction company, it's like, hey guys, instead of punching each other, come and build a house, right? It's as if like the violence is a waste of space in history, I don't know how to say it, but it's like a changing world is kind of like how, the changing universe is how the world can't make up its mind. It's like a multidimensional being like, okay, existence. It's like, are you existing? Are you infinite or finite? Like, why keep us in the, waiting for, a truth that we're already being? When one thinks of an advanced civilization, a person may be like, okay, sure, you create strategies, effort, structure, organization, vision updating and all of that. But on some level, it's as if only from the inner realms can human beings be activated to care for the advanced. It's as if advancement is how the mind releases its inner, how the mind releases its freedom into the dimensions of the body. We're living at a time where information like how can I tell you? It's like a discovery for the mind is like way more valuable than any discovery of the body. Okay, so if we consider that, that we give certain attributes to the past, we say the past was dualistic, the future's the past is, we're using language, linguistic, it's objective, we're physical, it's subjective, we're being an organism, it's biological, and then it's emotional. I've written it's like existence has always been existing, and experience is the source of the new or here. It's like it's like really the mind is the intelligence of the body. The future can be non-dual. The future can be silent. That means imagine in the future people don't need to speak to convey their thoughts. It's as if you can just, let's say you have a hologram, you just project a hologram, let's say sphere of light, and then you throw that sphere at someone, and the moment that sphere hits their, let's say, suit or something, they suddenly know exactly what you're saying, right? So there is a huge chance that a non-dual future is also a silent future. People think telepathy is cool, not realizing it will render. Telepathy is when it's like human beings no longer need to speak. It would be a very silent civilization. Imagine everybody's mind connected to like one server of understanding. And it's like instantaneous communication. It's like there may come a time in the future where the most advanced communication is instantaneous silent knowing, is silent instantaneous knowing. The instantaneous is divine, guys. Just the idea of an instant, a moment. We're all being moments in the universe right now. It's like, who knew? In all my past lives, I've been just being a moment in the universe, a moment of the universe. Right? That means on some level, based on this biological body, sure, I identify with my name, memory, personality. But if right now I wanted to consider a universal identity, I would become pretty much the eyes of how my moment is ever present. And a person can do that, but on some level, it's as if like the most powerful beings, they don't desire power. The most enlightened beings don't desire enlightenment. They are. You see, what you are, you don't look for, right? What you are not, you look for. It's like somebody looking for success is somebody who, there's the premise of, the unsuccessful. It's like their starting point hasn't even believed, because it is looking for something rather than seeing how it can be it, The realization of an object is that it's being in space. The realization for the future realization for a subject is infinity. It's like I'm saying the future of duality is non-duality. The future of language is silence. The future of objects is space. The future of subjects is infinity. The future of the biological, this is our choice. We'll see. And the future of our emotions, So the neighbors are playing music. I can't do much about that. I guess that this lecture has background music in it. And honestly, like, who knows how the future humanity will look at this world, but just the idea of not just getting the future generations here, but in some sense bestowing them the greatest honor of the past. You see, the biggest thing that has been important for human beings is the idea of legacy. And legacy is the idea of value continuation, value continuity. How much does a certain value, like a flame in the dark, kind of remain? If the future is free, it doesn't expect anything from the past. If the future is unfree, maybe only the past and the present can save it. And you know what's fascinating? What used to be, what we consider our past, is what used to be our present. And what we consider our future is what is going to be our present. It's as if in every moment of manifestation of whatever consideration of time, the past, present, and future all have space in common. And so it's as if it's like the individual is animating in a field of activity where potential remains in the void as anything. It's as if the evolution of human psychology is going to be towards something where we don't just want to be free in the world, we want a free world. A free world means a boundless world, a world where there's no boundaries. It's kind of strange to me that what the mind is doing is simulating versions of the earth and then getting more convinced by those than what the earth is. But when you look at the earth, it's like there's nothing for an object to do unless there comes a subjective dimension of a comparison of another earth. So, just like there's an idea of an inner earth and not like an earth inside the earth. What I would say, the inner earth is how the mind has a relationship with information. And the outer earth is how the body is being information. It's like wondering where is the desires of the human species going? And what is the proper alignment? That means 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere. What is their strategy? What can they do? What should they do? Right now you can see the future generations becoming disinterested in politics. right? But politics is one of the most beautiful parts of just being a human being, you know. In some, it has become corrupt, but I'm saying imagine an advanced civilization, imagine a government that behaved like a benevolent being, right? That prioritized, you know, the immediacy of how human beings are directly experiencing life rather than how they should, you know. The world needs, you know what it is? It's as if we are 8 billion lions, but we're living inside a civilization for sheep, right? And it's as if these lions are like, yo, something's off here. Like, you know, is there something better? You know, and it's like, you know, that legendary story where, here, I'll share the story. Pretty much there's this old story that this shepherd saves this lion cub, and this lion cub is so innocent and it doesn't do anything that the shepherd's like, all right, go live with the other animals, like throws the lion cub with the sheep, right? And the lion cub, you know, is at first scared, but then in some sense becomes a sheep. It's as if a lion that lives with sheep long enough becomes sheep, you know, behaves like a sheep. So this lion, this baby lion cub, doesn't know what else to do or how else to behave, right? So it starts acting like a sheep, and all the sheep, like, imagine the lion cub grows up and all the sheep are like, you know, this sheep fasts a lot, you know, they treat him as a weird sheep, okay? So imagine a lion trying to fit in with a bunch of sheep. Like, all the sheep eat grass, the lion tries to eat grass, and then it's like you know, it's not made for that, you know. Right? So it's as if all the sheep are like, look at this lion, he can't even eat, look at this weird sheep, you know, he can't eat grass. And the lion's like, man, am I in the wrong parallel universe? But anyways, the story goes that this cub is raised by sheep, you know. And so imagine a lion king, okay? A king of, like, a lion. Okay, man, how should I? Imagine there's a sheep king, and the sheep king adopts this baby lion, okay? And then there's a lion king, okay? And this lion king is walking at the edge of his kingdom, checking around his kingdom, right? And he suddenly notices this farm and notices, like, this random lion, like grown-ass lion, like, standing in the middle of a sheep, like sheep, you know? And so this Lion King, you know, gets fascinated and shocked at the same time. He's like, what am I looking at? And the Lion King goes to the fence of the farm and shouts, just roars and shouts and says, and let's say the lion roars, right? And when the lion roars, all the sheep run away and they go behind this weird, like the lion that was acting like a sheep, right? And somehow the lion that's like, that the sheep lion is like, in some sense, not fazed with the roar of the lion, but all the other sheep are fazed, right? And then the lion says, the Lion King shouts at the, you know, all the sheep, you know, and says, hey, lion, in the middle of the sheep, come here, right? And nobody knows what this king is talking about. If they don't know, the sheep don't know what a lion is. Even the lion that's being a sheep doesn't know what a lion is. Now, the Lion King looks at this and it's like, this king's not responding. This what do you call it? This lion's not responding. So then the lion says, hey, you big sheep in the middle of the sheep, come here, right? And then suddenly, like, this sheep, you know, this lion that's acting like a sheep suddenly feels like this is a moment of destiny. You know, it's as if, you know, the life he couldn't escape now has come to the door, you know, the opening of the door. So the sheep lion trusts destiny and goes, and the Lion King says, come with me. And the Lion King takes the sheep lion to a pond, to a still pond, and says, look at my reflection, what do you see? or actually, sorry, it says, "What? Look at your reflection. What do you see?" Right? And so the sheep lion looks in the reflection and sees the reflection of a lion, but says, "No, I see a sheep." Right? Then, in some sense, the Lion King says, "Look at my reflection." Right? And the sheep lion says, "Oh my God, you're a lion." Suddenly it settles in. Suddenly he realizes. Suddenly the great remembrance of lifetimes of illusion and ignorance arise. The sheep, the lion that thought that was raised in a universe of sheep, or the lion that was raised in a kingdom of sheep, suddenly realized it is in some sense a lion of a kingdom for lions. And the advanced civilization, I would say poetically, is the kingdom of lions. It's as if the way we want to live now in 2020 and onwards is a way where the future generations look at us and they lionize us. They become fascinated. It's as if we try to act 10,000 years ahead, like 10,000 steps ahead with the species things, right? Rather than just thinking like one step, two step ahead, the future generations are going to be like they were doing all that they could. And so what are we doing? The idea is that if one generation of human beings, there is like one moment where the whole world just lives honorably, let's say for 100 years. What I'm trying to say is that there could be a chance that, being the metaphor of the sheep and lion, the sheep is going to be like how we think that we are an object right now, and to become, in some sense, to realize that we are the lion, or let's say the fruition of meditation is that it's like the person who has been fine-tuning the guitar suddenly realizes that they could have been playing the guitar this whole time. And that rather than the balance of a closed system, we are seeking the novelty of an open system. That means it's like this hilarious time where people think there's no aliens on the planet, but the way language has possessed the behavior of human beings is to me like an alien invasion. But it's not that's me being a bit extreme at the same time. It's like language from one angle, it's like everybody's dressing up in their Iron Man suit based on their memory and experiences, but at the same time language has geometry and a design. Like a designer can totally look at language and realize how the story we are telling ourselves is like a sheep, the story of a sheep, but what we are is truly a lion, right? Like the civilization 1.0 is treating itself like a sheep, but in civilization 2.0 it would be as if, how could a species become smart enough to actualize the ultimate win-win scenario for all dimensions? That means a true advanced civilization must, in some sense, advance all dimensions it influences, right? Like, we can have this concept of an extraterrestrial being, and people are like, "Oh my God, how fascinating," and then we can have this concept of an advanced being, or an advanced state of being. For most people, that advanced state of being would be truth. Like, it's ridiculous how many people are trying to live in truth right now. It's like, what is truth? Is truth like what somebody told us? What the past told us? Or is truth the actualization of the future? It's as if the person's like, why is the past here? Oh yeah, to become my memories. Then why is the present here? Oh yeah, for me to create new memories. And then, oh, why is the future here? For me to see that I have never been my memories. What we are is like an eternal, invisible wind going through the branches of various dimensions of noble manifestation. The advanced humanity will be one where human beings will not have just realized that it's like it's like life is a game for an object, you know. There's an objective quest line, and then there's a subjective quest line. It's as if what is the purpose of the body? It's like to survive efficiently, you know, and to in some sense create more of its own value. Consciousness is like a sort of value expansion. A value expansion of it. Could our minds be alive in ways that even if the body dies, the mind can never? The mind it's as if there's two types of memories in two different parallel universes. Or imagine if somebody's just in one universe, there's no concept of good and bad. Suddenly they have the concept of good and bad, and they're in two universes, two parallel universes. Language should be seen as the geometry of truth, but not truth itself. Why are the eyes seeing? Why should a creature exist in the void? Why should there be a planet hovering in the middle of nowhere? Why should there be this constant presence of light and absence of light in a sort of dualistic evolutionary psychology to the entity? Let's say the biology's psychology is that when there is light, it chooses to activate. And a civilization that has descended into darkness has to discover, has to in some sense wonder about the edge. Like it's as if, let's say, beings are trapped in simulations, and the idea is like whatever kind of simulation you're trapped in, how do you escape the simulation? Either you were never inside the simulation, or you become the simulation, and technically you're not in a simulation when you are the simulation, right? Or, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to say that truth is space. Space is where meaning is connecting to an object. The past waits for the future because the past has done its part. It lived as a causal position. The future, by realizing it is the causal position, is only left to experience the effect. That means it's this hilarious scenario that time could be kind of like, a two-way trip, right? Where it's as if we go to the end of time, we get to the future, and when we reach the future, there is no time, so we walk back towards the past, right? It could be that time travel is because, again, the future fails, or it could be, or is enslaved, or it could be because the future has nowhere else to go other than the past, It's as if suddenly so many time travelers arrived, and people ask those time travelers, "Hey, why are you guys coming back from the future?" And the time travelers like, "Yo, we reached the edge of time. Like, there's no more time left. You know, there's no time in the future. You know, it's like you know, the whole universe doesn't wear a watch." it's like you can't sell a watch to a universal being. You know. It's like selling a watch to a timeless being, you know. The timeless beings, like, at least I like the color, you know. I like the style of the watch. The past and future can be seen to be projections of the present. And so, I guess the next great task of human beings going into the future, the great, you know, the mighty challenge for the future generations is how do we ideologically compartmentalize reality into a way where there is the multidimensional freedom rather than dualistic, you know, destined judgment, you know, sort of heaven and hell scenario. It's as if could there be dimensions devoid of, you know, the causal position of, I don't know how to say it. It's like a character inside a story. The story's either good, the story's bad, or the character is its free will is rewriting the story of what the moment means. Attention is, you know, how divinity is piloting in the world. We are free, not just because we can be, but because the world is free. There is nothing wrong with everything, you know. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. Much blessings and also. And an advanced civilization is the future's birthright. Namaste.